But Sarah, you're joining us now, and the timing is pretty good. There are a few things, I don't know what comes to top of mind, that we could talk about with a Liberal senator in our midst. But I do want to get your opinion first up on the ISIS bride story. So we were talking earlier about immigration. The idea, I'm sorry, I just find something very, very wrong about the idea that people who have been part of a terrorist entity such as ISIS somehow just happily come back into the country. Your thoughts, please, Sarah Henderson.
Well, good morning to you all. And what we have seen from this Prime Minister and the Home Affairs Minister, Tony Burke, is unacceptable secrecy in relation to the ISIS brides. They are potentially a very dangerous cohort of people. They went over to a war zone to support a heinous terrorist group, Islamic State. Now they are back in their community. Where are the promises or the safeguards in relation to community safety? It's just like the fast tracking of the 3,000 visas for Gazans and other Palestinians. And of course, many of those people are now back in our community with very serious concerns about the security checks which were imposed in relation to those visas. So once again, we see a dramatic fail from this government.
James.
Sarah, I want to move things a little bit closer to home now, because there are a lot of questions about what's going on within the Liberal Party room at the moment. One thing I would love to get your thoughts on here, we've had a lot of questions to MPs and senators about whether or not they are confident in the leadership of Susan Ley, but I'm also curious about Susan Ley's confidence in her team. I was very curious about your thoughts about this leak that appeared in the press, presumably from her office, of charter letters to her cabinet saying these are what we expect your KPIs or whatever to be. But at the same time, we're not actually seeing anything in the way of policy development, leaving this huge vacuum for discussion about the future of the leadership. Your thoughts?
Well, James, can I start by saying there is no doubt this is a very difficult time for the Liberal Party. We have just suffered our worst loss in 80 years, and we've got a lot of hard work to do to win back the faith and trust of Australians, and that includes on the policy front. We have a primary vote in the last news poll of 27%. That is dire, and I have to say, in relation to Andrew, I'm very sad to see him leave the front bench. He is a class act. He is a person of great integrity. He has moved to the backbench because he was sidelined in relation to immigration policy. But of course, we know about this because these charter letters were made known in the newspapers. That's unusual and probably disappointing. But I have no doubt that Andrew will continue to make an incredible contribution, as he has been doing, on the issues which are really dear to him, including, of course, immigration and net zero.
Rita.
On valuable members of the team, some of the best performance, we've seen what's happened with Senator Price, the way she was treated, demoted, attacked for making an observation about the voting patterns of the Indian community, really repeating what was said by a Labor pollster. I was really perturbed there, Sarah, with the way a female leader treated her female colleague. And as someone who is a senior member of the Liberal Party, how did you see that entire episode?
Well, I spoke out very strongly about this issue at the time. I was really pretty concerned about the way Jacinta was treated, including by Susan Ley. She had an absolute pile-on. She made a very simple mistake. She corrected that mistake at the request of the Leader's office. And then it didn't stop. She had the pile-on, the demands for the apology. She did everything she was meant to do. But when she was called a racist by the Labor Party and by the the ABC, I asked my colleagues to please back her in. That's disgusting. Stand up for Jacinta under those terrible circumstances. That didn't happen from the leader or from her inner circle. And I have to be straight with you, Rita, on this. That is just not good enough. When our own are under attack by Labor in the most disgraceful way, we need to stand up for them. I mean, that includes Jacinta, that includes Andrew, and even Linda Reynolds after the court case, which decided that, which found that she had been falsely accused of covering up a rape or an alleged rape at Parliament House. There were no voices from the leadership in relation to holding Labor to account for what they did to Linda. So across the board, Rita, we've got to do a better job at standing up for our own, but in relation to Jacinta, that is really disappointing. And under those circumstances, when she was asked, does she have confidence in the leader, after 10 days of being battered and kicked to the ground, I'm not surprised that she couldn't come out and say, yes, I have confidence in the leader. I mean, if someone calls you a racist, this is a fine warrior for Indigenous people, an incredible Indigenous woman. It was disgusting. And our party should have done better to back Jacinta in.
Absolutely.
Sarah, I'd go further than that and say you've now got on the so-called backbench, or certainly not in the cabinet of the Liberal Party, some of the best performers. And I don't expect you to respond, but I would include yourself in that. Jacinta Price, Andrew Hastie, I read some of them earlier, Alex Antic, obviously, Garth Hamilton and others, Henry Pike has joined, Ben Small. There's a very formidable team forming there. Now, I don't know your views on net zero. I'd love to have them. But it seems to me that along with immigration, the public only, you mentioned how low the Liberal vote was, but the government's vote, Labor's vote, was the lowest it's ever been, or something like that. It was incredibly low to win office with. There's two-thirds of the majority of the people in Australia, they didn't want the voice. I would argue they don't want net zero. I would certainly argue that they're not fans of this kind of out-of-control immigration. So my question to you is, can the Liberal Party continue with this kind of heavy weight of talent not involved in the cabinet, and I would argue perhaps lesser talent sitting in the cabinet?
Well, Rowan, there is a lot of very good talent on the backbench, and I would also include Jane Hume in that as well. She's a very strong performer. But all I can say about the Liberal Party is the backbench is a very powerful place to be. It gives us the freedom to exercise our views, to prosecute the issues which are important to all Australians. That includes immigration. We've got to see dramatically lower immigration. That includes turning our back on net zero laws, which are driving up electricity prices, which are making no difference to global emissions. And that includes on other issues that I've been prosecuting, standing up for farmers, against high voltage transmission towers, making sure there are no biological men in women's jails. I mean, that is just a line that cannot be crossed in this country. And I've also been prosecuting important issues in the education space, an inflation guarantee for help debts, and capping international students at 25%, which was our policy at the last election, which gets the balance right and still makes us one of the most generous countries in the world when it comes to welcoming international students. So it is a powerful place to be on the backbench, and I think we're all going to use that in the best interests of the Australian people.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that. I'd also like to briefly, we've only got a few seconds left, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Optus situation. I know you've been speaking out about that as well.
Well, Rowan, we need a Senate inquiry to hold the government, the regulator and other key stakeholders to account, including, of course, the new minister, who's clearly not up to the job. It's all very well to have an independent inquiry, but that's not good enough. And also the government's decision just to get the regulator to do the job is like putting Dracula in charge of the blood bank. We cannot forget this is an absolute scandal. A number of people have died as a result of the 000 failures, and that's why a fully transparent and open Senate inquiry is essential, and I'm very much hoping the Senate will support that when we return in a few weeks' time.
Superb. Perspicacious, James? Perspicacious. You get a Perspicacity Award for the day. Sarah Henderson, thanks so much for coming on Outside. It's great to chat to you, as always.